see.
Okay.
That's okay. So, my sister there.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, Nancy.
Bye, Nancy.
Good to see y'all.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, I don't
Because
have
this
any.
way-
I don't have any. That's all right.
Thank you for being here with me. And
I'm delighted.
As soon as they say that we're rolling,
We'll roll again.
We will roll one more time, and you know, each time that you tell me the story, I understand it a little better.
Oh, good.
So it's
That's
helping. I mean,
good.
you have to understand those of us who grew up in, because I mean, how many Protestant religions are there, for God's
tons.
sakes? I mean, you know.
Tons and tons.
Yeah, and all this, and how each individual one has a different way or a different method. Do Methodists have methods?
They do.
There are actual methods?
Well, they do. Methodists have methods, but I am not an expert on that. I can speak all day about Presbyterians, but...
Now, a Presbyterian is it presbytery?
Yes. Presbyter is the Greek word for elder.
Ah.
So Presbyterian is arranged around having church elders make the decisions.
By elders, do we mean elders and elderettes, or is these just...
In most Presbyterian denominations, there are both female and male elders.
Okay, so elder is not a male, male...
In the church I grew up in, it is still.
Yeah.
The Associate Reformed Presbyterian Church. It's an ethnic Scottish denomination.
Wow.
I know.
Now we're talking.
That's a wee drama interestingness.
Hey, that helps me know that.
Oh God. Yeah.
So
I'll tell you all about that if you want.
well, the thing that I'm interested in, is how when you're up in the is it a
Pulpit.
in the pulpit? Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? What's on the minds of people here in the 21st century and at the First UU, and what are you talking about?
I talk about the things that are interesting to me, questions that I have. I try to find a pulpit text, which I take from a song, or I can take it from any scripture that I want to, Hindu scriptures, Jewish scriptures. I'm a visitor. We just call the scriptures of the world's religions one of our sources that we draw wisdom from. And so I can talk about depression, or I can talk about elation, or when I did a series on different fairy tales and just talked about what would it be like for us to be Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and who are the bears and who's Goldilocks, and what's the house all about. And actually I ended up talking about the fruit company in Guatemala during that sermon. So they often get political. But I worked for 15 years as a therapist, and so a lot of my sermons I think they feel like group therapy sometimes.
Yes. Why would it not be?
Right.
I mean,
and if I can tell, yeah. So, I spent so many years just sitting in my chair going, Well, meanwhile, I had all these things that I wanted to say, like, honey, do not marry that man. Are you kidding me? But you can't say that.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I did say that one time, which is when I knew I was burned out. And I needed a different job. But, so you have all these thoughts that you've had, and you've watched hundreds of people go through hundreds of things in their lives. And so I've got a lot to say.
And how did you make that transition? How did you make the transition to say, okay, I'm going to give this a shot?
Well, I was ordained Presbyterian, and then the range of biblical things that I could preach about, because the Bible has to be the pulpit text for a Presbyterian sermon.
Right.
Got narrower and narrower and narrower till it's pretty much down to God is love, and anything that contradicts that is a lie. And if it makes you try to hate other people, then it's a damn lie.
Yeah.
And then my sexuality shifted, and I came out as a lesbian, which the Presbyterians did not like in 1980.
Oh, well,
such.
that's good. Oh, wonderful.
And I found out about the Unitarian Universalists, which I hadn't even known about because they're so reserved and shy. They asked me to come preach in this small southern town, and they said, now do a little research on us because we don't want a Presbyterian sermon. You know, we're not necessarily a Christian denomination. And I thought, okay. So I went, I read in the back of the hymnal. There was Rabindranath Tagore and Doris Lessing and Adrienne Rich in the back of the hymnal. And I thought, where have these people been my whole life? I would have been one of y'all if I had known about y'all early, but I didn't. Because I was at Princeton Seminary, and they didn't let Unitarian students in until 1981, which is when I graduated.
That is amazing. What an incredible change that we have seen in the evolution.
Yeah.
In when you talk about when I was growing up, and then after when you were growing up, and we were looking at the consciousness of what we believed, and to now, gay marriage is not only legal, but it's part of our. I mean, it's an extraordinary.
It's legal, but the Methodist ministers still can't do it legally. They
Why
can't do
is
it.
that?
This
is recently.
They get the epaulets ripped off, like F Troop.
Exactly.
I know. They get their sword broken.
So when you think of it from a minister, what do you think is going on in a denomination when something like that happens? Because here we are in 2019. We know that this just happened in the newspaper that they had a
big conference.
Big conference, and then they voted.
They voted to not accept gay ministers, and
so what's going on? What is
conservatives
going on?
the conservatives just staged a takeover, and enough people in this cultural climate are conservative enough and willing to be. And I'm just saying my opinion.
That's all I'm asking.
But I think people are all into, well, I'm just saying what I think. I'm just saying what I think.
Yep.
And I have deep little thoughts in my head that I used to be shy to say, and I used to think I'd be ostracized if I said them. But now, by God, I'm going to say them because we have a performative cruelty that's operative in our culture right now. And it's like, who can be the cruelest? You're the coolest.
Yeah.
And I think the conservatives just got righteous and mouthy and said, if we're going to please God the way they picture God, which is not a way I would picture God, then we have to go according to the Bible. And what they've been taught is that the Bible is against homosexuality, which is not completely true. It's way more complicated than that.
Yep.
And the Bible is also against wearing clothes of mixed threads, like poly cotton blend, and eating shellfish. That's called an abomination 6 times, whereas homosexuality or lying with a man is called an abomination 1 time. So if you go to church and stomp on the heads of homosexuals and then go in your poly cotton suit to Red Lobster after church, abomination, 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 abomination.
Yeah, and that's choosing or a selective way, and in order to conform to my own biases, to my own. All right. So how do we? This is interesting. So how can we grow? As I was talking to your wife Kaya, I was looking at I'm a wired optimist.
Yeah.
So I believe that human beings, given enough time, assuming that we take it, that we're going to come to that darkness is an unnatural state. Anger is an unnatural state. That's a tightness that the minute you expose light to it, it begins to slowly unravel, and that people will come to a higher level of inclusion. Haven't you seen this in some families, that once someone comes out within a family, suddenly the dynamics within that family change for the positive?
No.
Is that just my own mythology?
Yeah. I mean, I think it happens in some families, and I think some families just decide that their love and loyalty to one another is more important than their partial understanding of what the Bible says. But I have sat in the room as a counselor, as a therapist with families, and I've said to the mother, are your principles dearer to you than your child? And she said, yes, they are. That child has got to go. Because their preachers, honey, teach them that they are responsible for the eternal health of their child's soul. And if they think their child is hell-bound for some reason or another, usually it's that they're gay, that they have to show tough love and boot the child out. And that somehow makes them righteous in God's eyes, which is so messed up. So messed up. I just,
Well, you know, Meg, I have never seen a time when, for me, when I have had some kind of an emotional upset at some situation, that it really wasn't about something going on inside of Dennis.
yeah.
That I can outpicture, I can know when someone on the TV set annoys me, and my wife Melissa, she'll turn to me and she'll go, well, what's really going on?
Yeah.
What's going on with you? Because every single time, damn it, I can't be a victim anymore. I actually have to own the fact that there's some disquietude going on in here, or I wouldn't be reacting to all the things that are going on. Now, that doesn't mean that and one of the things I so admire about the Unitarians is that you work.
Yeah.
You get out there and you get involved.
We do.
We
may not always do it right, but we try hard.
But you do. You get involved. There is suffering, you get involved.
Because
there is work, you get involved.
Yeah.
You don't just sit on the sideline and go, well, my goodness.
My goodness, children in cages, whatever will we do?
What can we do? What can we do?
No, we don't do that. We don't do that. But that makes me angry. And it's nothing in me. I mean, and you know that there are different kinds of anger, but sometimes you just get mad because something's outrageous.
Well, there is one that will call me and help, that can help me, but I'm talking about the kind that all I'm doing.
You're just being irritated at somebody.
I'm just being irritated because that just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, and then you start looking.
And then I started looking. Okay, Dennis. There's that old mirror, and I can just begin to do that because I find that I am creating my universe from the inside out. That the degree of how I treat myself ends up being how I'm experiencing the world.
Oh yeah, I had a client one time who had terrible fights with her mother. She was in her 20s, terrible fights. And she went and got some antidepressant medication. And she said, Ms. Barnhouse, I started taking that Prozac and my mother just got so much better.
She just got, it's just mad.
I know. But, you know, it's a standard therapist question when somebody's really angry about something. You go, what part of this anger is anger at yourself?
Exactly. And I'm really on this journey of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Is because as I become the internal wars and the internal self-judgments and work, as those things begin to loosen, I think of it like a Gordian knot, right? I mean, if I take the two ends of a knot and I start pulling it, just makes it tighter.
That's right.
And there's something so to gently be pulling on, and just find one little thread and pull it back and I mean, so that's my analogy, and that's part of what in the therapy that you did, you help people to heal their internal world. I mean, aren't you doing the same thing?
Just in a group. You know, I had a life's purpose dream when I was 13 years old. I dreamed one night, literal dream, that I was looking in a newspaper and there was a column that I was reading and there was a picture of a woman with white curly hair and a white coat on, and I knew it was me as an old woman. And the title of the column was Speaking to the Locks. And I thought, and she had a motto cross-stitched. My mother used to do a lot of cross-stitching, and she had a motto cross-stitched hanging on the wall behind her head, and it was the most beautiful motto I'd ever experienced. And I woke up crying with the beauty of it, but I couldn't remember what it was. But I remembered the title of that column, which was Speaking to the Locks. And I thought, okay, that's my life work. I need to be speaking to the locks. That's what I'm going to do till I'm an old lady. Wow. And the knot analogy like that, where you just gradually tease things looser and looser and try to get the key in there and pull a little bit.
That's my experience. How cool. So how is it being you at this age? How is the experience? Because I'm 70 years old this year, and I get a chance to go, now wait a minute. What if this were the prime of my life? Well, how did I decide? What if I could just decide? I could decide, okay, well, this is going to be the prime of my life. I'm gonna have the time of my life. But that's the decision I'm making. I mean, certainly like a laptop, my battery doesn't last. I can't go those 21-hour days or do that and not remain fresh. But I'm doing better work. I'm more engaged, I'm more involved than I've ever been before.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
How about you?
I'm writing a book that has in it everything I know. And it's organized around the life cycle of a seed. And so I talk about the times when I've felt under the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's damp and it's cold and it's dark, but eventually something happens and you break open. And then this little shoot comes out, and it's Saint-Exupéry called it haunted by the sun. And so haunted by the sun, the seed makes its way through the stones in the ground. Isn't that wonderful? God. And then you have these two little delicate leaves. And so sometimes you're just in a mind where you go, something's starting, but I'm not sure what it is. And you pull in the sun and you get stronger and stronger. Then there comes the blossoming time where you're just showing out honey. And people are all like, oh my goodness, you are a genius. Oh my goodness, its work is so wonderful. But then your blossoms start to open up even more and then drop away. And what you're left with is the seeds. And then the seeds fall on the ground again.
Yes.
And so I feel like I'm kind of at the end of a blossoming time. I don't know for sure, but I feel like I'm in a seed time, and that I've generated all this energy for the future, and I'm trying to pass it. Like I just finished writing a middle grade fantasy book, really for my granddaughter, to teach her about being a girl and how to be powerful as a female. And everything she needed to know. But I couched it in 7th century Scotland. Anyway, so I feel like I'm just throwing seeds right now. I'm just putting seeds out into the universe.
Such a time, you know, when I was growing up, my mother, as a single woman in Texas, I remember us going into the. Now, she had a college education, was well known in this town, was everybody, and yet in the 50s, she could not buy a couch because they would not let her sign the contract by law, by state law. They would not let her sign the installment loan contract, even though she had the job, was well known, and had to have a man come in and co-sign. Now, we almost had a woman president. Mm-hmm. We have 4 women, 5 that are legitimately running right now for president. We have more women in Congress, more diversity in Congress. It's
making a difference too, isn't it?
God, thank God.
I know.
It's this time. I feel that the last 10,000 years, when we made private property, the male went into this ascendancy. And now we see we've achieved levels of complexity. We cannot do it with men alone, the patriarchy. We must have this blend.
Never could, they just didn't mention it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's fine if you're going to go out and cut down a tree and go out and slay something.
Don't be slamming men. I got 2 boys, 2
No,
sons.
I'm not. I mean, but
yeah.
that is our those are the things. But this, you know.
But there have always been amazing women. We're just now learning about how their history's been erased.
Thank you.
Amazing mathematicians and computer scientists and astronomers and just, you know, one of the Greek historians said, a woman's life, if it were to be ideal, it should be as if she had never lived. And so when a woman did something that made a mark on the world, they just gently erased it for her.
And of course, history being written by the victors,
yeah,
and written by the men, of course it's going to be written, it's whose story is it? It's his story.
yeah.
And that's where we're getting a chance. That's what I love about what's going on. I always identified, when I was growing up, I always identified with women. It was just my personality. My personality was I wanted to visit. I wanted to go talk,
have a little talk,
and have a little fun, and have a little. But besides, they were girls too, and that was nice because I could go be around the girls, and that was my. I mean, I don't take any credit for my gender preference. It just was built into me. I was a little boy.
Right.
Who liked little girls. It was just, as a little boy, I mean, as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
We
you didn't have to
marriage.
come out as straight.
I mean, it was just the way it was.
Yeah.
But yet still I identified with the female. Mm-hmm. So I was this weird sense of I was thinking of, is it possible that our physical has a gender and our personalities also have?
I just think the whole thing is a continuum and a social
Exactly.
construct. I mean, I wish we could, just being any kind of a gender is sort of a pain. And you have your sexual preference, which also can be on a continuum. And you have your chromosomes, of course, but they don't determine everything. And then you have your gender presentation, and some people like to present in different ways. I mean, I just think we should relax and let people be people, instead of going, now, are you a man or a woman? And what is your background? Are you Caribbean, or are you French?
Where are you from?
Where are you really from? That's just so crazy.
It would drive my wife crazy because she's from Pennsylvania. And down in Texas, she'd go, well, where are you from? Where are you from? I mean, it was like, she was like, I live here.
Yeah, like I live in Texas. I know. I remember meeting this, in North Carolina. I was up in the mountains, and I was meeting this woman who was Presbyterian. So we knew we were in this Scottish denomination called Associate Reformed Presbyterian. So we knew we were cousins in some way. And she said, now, where are you from? And I said, I told them the name of the town. And she said, now, who are your people?
Yes.
And I said, well, I come from the Presleys, and I come from the Hamiltons. She was like, I know you. She was like, I know you.
I do. I knew your granddaddy.
That's right. Right, because you're not really an individual in the Old South. You're family. You're just a sprout from your family tree. Anyway.
God, that's fun.
Yeah.
And that's what we're getting a chance to do. And we're getting a chance to break through that and really to break into this. Because I'm thinking of that if each one of us is unique, then we're all identically. We all have that our own. And so that's what I'm here to do, is to express that uniqueness.
Do you know that letter that is written between 2 dancers? One is, what was her name? Anyway, you can look it up. But she wrote to her friend, Agnes DeMille.
Yes.
Was written to a letter by this other dancer who was wonderful. I can't remember her name. And she said, you are the only you that has ever existed. And what needs to come through you can't come through anybody else. And if you don't keep the channel open, the world will never have what it is that you are not supposed to, but that you are invited to give to the world. There's only one of you.
Meg.
Keep the channel open.
That resonates so much for me, because the instant I get into the comparative, it sucks my energy out. We were talking about improv, right? Before that, and I know that the instant whenever I'm getting into the comparative, I mean, we could do this with a television show. With I can sit there and go, well, you know, I'm comparing to Bill Moyers, or I'd like to do, and the instant I get into that, even if I think I'm doing better than someone, it always diminishes me. The comparative takes me away from my uniqueness.
One of the things I love about Unitarian Universalism right now is that we have a ceremony that we do every May called the Flower Ceremony.
Yes.
And it was written by a man named Norbert Chapek. He was a minister in New Jersey for a while, but he was from Central Europe. And he went back to Central Europe and introduced this ceremony there, where everyone comes to church and brings some flowers. And then you put them on the altar, and it's this huge, wonderful display of yard flowers and store flowers and all kinds of beautiful flowers. And then everyone at the end of the service takes one home. And the whole message is that you are unique, and yet you are here in a field with other flowers. And here is the kind of flower you might feel like today. And all the flowers are beautiful. And because he was teaching things like this, he was thrown into a Nazi death camp. And we remember him every May, Norbert Chapek, and we do the flower, some people call it flower communion, flower ceremony. But it's to teach this, the absolute uniqueness of a person, and also the absolute groupness of a field of different flowers. There's never just one flower by itself that's not as beautiful as whole heaps of flowers all together.
I was talking about this on another reasonably spontaneous conversation on what a monoculture does to a field.
Yes, it's very vulnerable. And if you have a lot of diversity in your seeds and in your field,
and little animals and your insects and your own
one little fungus comes along and it might kill 3 of you, but it won't kill the whole field.
Exactly. So I mean, we can look at it. This is the whole thing, because when I talk with some of my friends who identify as conservative, and I go, "What's that first part of that word?"
Yeah. What do they say?
What does that mean? What does that mean to be? Because I mean, I know Teddy Roosevelt, or I know some of the wonderful people that
conservationists.
That've been conservationists. Doesn't that come from the same root? Isn't the word from the same piece? That's what's something that I want to see, the ways that we can together have these conversations. That's part of what I'm doing here.
Do you know they have human libraries now, where you check out a person? You check out like what you're doing right here. You check out a person and you have a conversation, and then you just return them to the library.
I want to get in that card catalog. I want the Dennis card. Be in there.
People just check out Dennis.
I just hear my hearing aid. The little bounces, and I go, oh, I've just been checked out.
I've been checked out. I'm going to go meet somebody for tea.
That's what we're going to do. Thank you so much for the opportunity to spend time with you, Meg, because the kinds of healings that you're doing, what you're offering to all of us, is astounding, and I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
I can't wait to get a chance to be able to see in this cycle, because so many people, I mean, at my age now, I open up the obituaries, right, and I go, wow, there are a significant number of people that were younger than I was that sat there, that woke up one morning.
Gives you pause, doesn't
it? It does all the time. So I sit there, okay, well, what I may only have today, well, what if I lived like that?
I can't do that because I'd be exhausted. Sometimes I just say, I can't live as if today were my last day, because I would just be exhausted. Sometimes I have to live as if I've got a nice long life ahead and I'm just going to take a nap.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! Because but if I take
but
that
a nap is not a bad way to spend the last day.
It is a great way.
I see what
that
you're
is
doing.
it's not the what, it's the how.
Yeah. Oh man, you should end on that. That's wise. That's some wisdom right there.
We be wise.
Sometimes.
Be wise.
Sometimes.
Meg. Oh, thank you very much. All right, well, we're done. Thank you.
Lovely,
Thank you.
lovely.
Thanks
Oh,
for,
there you are, feeling me up again.
yeah. Kind of honest to God, I'm not doing this. Please.
She's not to beat you up, Tom.
Yeah, no, she, God, thank you, Meg.
Thanks for inviting us.
Well, it is, I plan on knowing you for as long as I'm on the planet. You have a light.
Okay, good,
You
good.
are a precious, holy light, and it's
You
just,
too.
God, thank you.
Some people, you just like being around them, and like yourself better when you're around them. I like you.
You're gonna be 3. Okay.